Hey guys, it's Jeff. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing Scythe, Book 1 of the Arc of a Scythe series by Neal Shusterman. So it didn't even take me a week to read this book. I started it, today's Sunday, I started it last week, Monday, and I just want to say that this is quickly becoming one of my most favorite series overall. I just finished Book 1 today. I already got Book 2 and 3 in the mail today, Thunderhead and The Toll, so I can't wait to start those. And I was kind of debating on whether or not I should do just an entire series review of them, but as I was reading through Book 1, I was like, oh, there's just so much detail in here that it wouldn't do the book series justice if I just summed them all into one video. And although I love the book, there was one thing mainly that I was a little bit upset about, and I'm going to talk about that after I score the book because it's a bit of a spoiler, and I don't want that to spoil anybody who hasn't read it yet. So the first portion of this video is going to be non-spoiler. So what this book is about, it's set in the future, called instead of America, it's Mid-America. So there's a lot of countries and things that have joined together, and they kind of join their names together to create a new continent, whatever you want to call it. And in the future, there is no hunger, there is no war, there is no disease, and people don't die naturally. People are born immortal. They have these pain nanites inside of their DNA. So if you get scratched or you get hurt, you heal really quickly, and it hurts for a moment, but the pain is taken away by those pain nanites. So you're not really, you're not really in trouble of feeling that much pain. And if you do die naturally, you are brought to a hospital, and no matter how badly your body is broken or bruised or whatever, they can fix you back up. It's for a cost, of course. It gets really expensive to bring you back to life. But for example, there's these things called they're like splatters. I think they're like adrenaline junkies, where they jump off of tall buildings and they basically explode themselves. They hit the ground, and then they do it for that adrenaline rush of falling, but then they get resuscitated back to life in a hospital. So it's mainly young kids that do that, young teenagers who are trying to be reckless and rebels. But if you die naturally for some reason, then you get brought back to life. Now with that comes a problem, because when you're born immortal, if everybody's immortal, nobody dies. So in order to contain the population and have population control, they have this job called scythes. And what scythes do, they wear these robes so that you can quickly identify them as a scythe, and they usually carry some type of weapon of choice around. And their job is they call it gleaning, because they don't want to call it killing people, because murder doesn't exist anymore in this society. They call it gleaning. So every scythe is tasked to kill a certain number of people every year so that the population doesn't get too out of control. Their quota is around 250 people per year. So most scythes will take the life of 5 people per week, and in order to maintain their quota. Now, in this society, scythes are considered to be, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Honorable, right? They are the epitome of as close as royalty as you can get without actually being royal. They are very highly respected because people know how important their jobs are, whether they agree with being gleaned or not. Some go more willingly than others, but the scythedom is very just well respected in the community, because they know how important this job is for society. Some scythes are better than others. The story follows Rowan and Citra. Rowan is a guy, Citra is a girl. They're both teenagers, 16. They're approached by Scythe Faraday, who has not agreed, but wants them to become scythes because he sees something in both of their personalities that would launch them into being a good scythe. And in his eyes, and most other people's eyes too, the ideal scythe is someone who doesn't want to be a scythe, because they grant it to people who are very remorseful and feel bad taking a human life, because they want to keep humanity alive within people. They just don't want to be killing machines. Someone who admires killing and wants to be basically a murderer and wants to kill people for the sport of it is not an ideal candidate, and usually the scythedom can sniff that out pretty quickly, although some do escape the cracks, and scythes have immunity against being killed. The only way that a scythe can die is if they kill themselves, if they choose to kill themselves, unless there's some type of scandal. It's like scythes are not allowed to kill other scythes unless they can somehow get away with it. So Rowan and Citra are chosen by Scythe Faraday to be apprentices under his teaching for the next year. As a part of their apprenticeship, they are granted immunity from being gleaned. Scythes carry around a ring that if they grant immunity to someone, all you have to do is kiss it, and their DNA gets transported to like this database, so that if a scythe walks up to someone and is about to glean them, their ring will glow red, to let them know, no, you can't kill this person because they have immunity. And with becoming a scythe, as a part of your apprenticeship, your immediate family gets immunity for a year from being gleaned. And once you become a scythe, if you join the scythedom, your family is immune from being gleaned the entire time that you're alive. So as long as you're alive being a scythe, nobody can touch you, which is it's a pretty cool, incentive to become a scythe. And mainly that's what Rowan and Citra do it for. They don't really do it for themselves. They don't want to kill people, which obviously would make them the ideal candidate, but they mainly do it because they want to protect their family. They don't want their family to be hurt. So as characters, I really quickly liked Citra and Faraday and Rowan. Rowan is comes to be more of like an aggressive scythe. Like through his training from other scythes, they get trained not only from Faraday but other scythes. Scythe Goddard, who is more aggressive, and then Scythe Curie, who is more closer to Faraday. Faraday is a scythe who is an old what do they call it? Old guard scythe, where he's very he doesn't glean the same person. He doesn't glean the same person the same way twice. He always has a unique way of doing it, because he said he wants to keep his humanity. He wants to, make every person unique, because he still feels for that person. Like, he doesn't want to kill them, but each person is unique, and if he kills them in a unique way, he kind of remembers a part of them that he took their life. And one of the things that scythes are required to do is keep a daily journal of all the people they've gleaned, talking about them. They keep a journal about it, and of the people that they gleaned, and also like just their daily thoughts of trying to get them through this process of having to take other human lives, because nobody can understand how like detrimental that is to their psyche. Scythes are outside of normal law, so most of the other population is watched over by the Thunderhead, which is like a more advanced version of the cloud. Like the cloud, if you can imagine the cloud where photos and videos are stored in, it becomes self-aware, and it basically becomes this self-governing, all-wise program that people come to consult, and it has the ideas on how to better people, and that type of thing, how to make society as best as it can be, even though it's already reached its peak of humanity. It offers suggestions and things like that. So the Thunderhead cannot has no jurisdiction over size and what they do. So as I was reading through this book, even within the first 50 pages, I was really fascinated by this world that Shusterman has created. I wanted to learn more about the Scythedom, of the Scythes. When Citra and Rowan are going through their training, they're required to learn history of weapons, of blades, of poisons, of chemistry, of history of famous Scythes, how everything started out. And I was really I just dove right into this lore that Shusterman had created, and I wanted more. I was literally hungry for more. I wanted to know more about it. And I don't think you guys are going to be disappointed if you pick this up. I mean, it starts off really quick right away, and you can sense within those first couple pages just how desperate some people would feel when they see a Scythe walking by. When, if they see a Scythe walking by, they're like, oh man, I think I forgot my wallet at home, when they're at the grocery store, and they make an excuse to try to get out of the Scythe's way. And some people will go up to them and try to, kiss up to them and try to get on their good side, hoping that they won't be gleaned or that they'll grant them immunity. Scythes can't grant immunity to everybody. They can't just be like, all right, come up and, everybody, and, I'm just going to grant everybody immunity. Usually Scythes do it for a reason. There was one there, if someone had gone through something traumatic and just saw somebody gleaned, the Scythe might go up to him and be like, all right, I'm going to grant you immunity for a year because you probably shouldn't have seen that. So, you're going to be safe for the next year because that was pretty traumatic of you to go through. So most Scythes are very respectable and understand that how difficult the task is to have to take somebody's life. All right, so with all that being said, I'm going to give Scythe a 5 out of 5. I was going back and forth a little bit. It started off with me giving it a 5, and then when something happened that I didn't really agree with, that felt out of order. There were a few things in this book that felt like it could have been arranged differently. I wasn't really upset with what happened, but in what order it happened, and it kind of threw me off a little bit. So it started off with a 5, and then I went down to a 4 because of that. And then by the end of the book, it redeemed itself and got back up to a 5 again. So I was really going back and forth. And for the longest time, I was going to give it a 4, but it ended up being good enough for me to end it with a 5. So that's the main part of the review. Stick around after this score for a second if you want to, for the people who have read it, for me to go a little bit in more depth about why I didn't agree with some of the things that went on here, even though I gave it a 5. Or someone who, if you haven't read the book yet, if you're more interested, just so that you're prepared, and if you just want to hear my thoughts on the subject. All right, so the biggest problem that I had with this book is that Scythe Faraday dies too quickly. The book isn't even halfway over. Or, no, I'm sorry. Not that he dies too quickly, but Shusterman gives you the illusion that he dies, okay? The book isn't even halfway over, and already Scythe Faraday is gone from the picture. And I was like, you actually got to be kidding me right now. I was so addicted to Faraday's calm, cool, collected demeanor of him just representing everything that the Scythedom was founded on back when it was first created, about them being respectful for people's lives, understanding of how difficult it is to take a life. And, everything about, for anyone who's read it, everything about Faraday's demeanor that was very charming and likable about him. A lot of experience, not hot-headed, very rational, thinking things through. And I was looking forward to this whole book, the first, I think it's around page 170 or 180. I was hoping that the whole book would be those first 180 pages. I wanted the whole book to be like that. And we didn't get it. And when I obviously anyone who's read the book, he didn't die. And the reason that he was gone was because he wanted to retire, and he wanted to make it seem like he died, like he committed suicide, but he wanted to retire. I was like, what? Like, that was really weird. It was just like a lame excuse, I think. I know why he did it. It was because, for anyone who's read it, Citra and Rowan, typically a Scythe is not allowed to have, or there's no rule against it, but typically a Scythe will only take on one apprentice at a time. And since he took on two during one of the conclaves where all these Scythes meet up and discuss political matters, someone's like, just to like shake things up and be an idiot. He was like, since Scythe Faraday has two apprentices, I think by the end of their training, whoever gets chosen, they can't be chosen, but whoever gets chosen should have to glean the other one. And everyone's like, that's a good idea. And then Citra and Rowan are looking at each other like, that doesn't sound like a good idea at all. So Faraday gets really guilty about that and chose to glean himself so that they are released from that bond. And once you're no longer part of the Scythe's apprenticeship, all like bindings are like removed, and they wouldn't be bound to do that to each other once they graduated. But then within the same page of them telling him, yeah, he killed himself, but you know what? We decided to give you an apprenticeship to Scythe Goddard, and Citra, we decided to give you an apprenticeship to Scythe Curie. I was like, so all in the same page, you tell us that Scythe Faraday is dead, they're released from their bonds, but now they're back and they have to glean each other anyway. So I'm like, so what was the point of Faraday dying? Now this is before we find out later on in the book that he's actually not dead. But this a lot of this book, I was like legitimately angry that Faraday died, not because he died, but that he died too early. And I was like, I'd be totally fine if Faraday had died, but like later on. And when we find out that he's not actually dead, that Citra finds him through, communicating with the Thunderhead and putting all these clues together, finding out that he's not dead and he wanted to retire in order to release them from that bond, but then they ended up having to get trained again and going through that again. I was like, oh man, that was like a wasted opportunity to like, as much as I love Scythe Faraday, if he would have died at the end of book one, like I probably would have been okay with that. Or at least this same situation where if he had, I think Shusterman wasted a good opportunity to make it seem really scandalous, right? Where the Scythedom, it really isn't everything that on the surface that people think it is. There's a lot of, celebrity and ego and, like scandal and stuff within the Scythedom that doesn't get out because they want to be considered, the purest and highest form of like, humanity, not to look down on other people, but they will need to be this beacon of like justice and beacon of hope and, and to be fair. But I really, I feel like a lot of things could be done differently. Like if the book had ended with Faraday dying or, left it as a cliffhanger thinking that he was dying, I wanted the whole book for them to be trained with Faraday because I really liked him. Although I do like Scythe Curie because she holds a similar mindset to Faraday because they've known each other for such a long time. They kind of became Scythes at the same time, so they're still part of that old guard mentality. And then the whole Scythe Goddard plot storyline has a purpose, but I didn't really feel like Rowan needed to be a part of that. The only way that I feel like that benefited him, because I mean, since he's an apprentice, he's not allowed to participate in any of these mass gleanings that Scythe Goddard does, right? They come into a building and they take flamethrowers and guns and just like, kill hundreds of people at a time. And really the only purpose of that happening was, I think, at the very end so that Rowan could escape once Citra becomes Scythe Anastasia, since she was going to glean him Instead, she punches him in the face and grants him immunity, even though pretending like she didn't. She was about to kill him, and everybody said, "Stop! No, he's got immunity. You can't kill him." She's like, "Whoops, I didn't mean to do that." So the only reason I think that the whole Goddard storyline benefited Rowan was so that he could get up off the ground and kind of like, slash people on his way out so that he could escape, with Scythe Faraday, who was waiting in like a getaway car, which seemed like a little bit too action movie to me, but I don't know. It ended up working out. But most of Scythe Goddard's storyline could have been done without Rowan, because a lot of the things that happened between Goddard and, he's kind of manipulative between Scythe, the High Blade Xenocrates, kind of manipulating him into doing things that he wants. And, is this pushing the boundaries between what Scythes are and aren't allowed to do? The only real benefit was of Rowan going through that storyline is so that, he could escape at the end, and kind of also figuring out that Xenocrates has an illegitimate daughter that he's not allowed to talk about. So Rowan kind of uses that, not exactly as blackmail, but as leverage on a position to be like, well, the things I've done, I'm not going to tell anybody about this. So it's like kind of like a mutual agreement. So the one thing that really made me angry was, just to summarize again, is that Faraday had the illusion of dying too early, and I was legitimately angry. Not because he died, but because he died way too early, and I felt like things could have been rearranged a little bit more. But I'm still going to hold true on my 5 out of 5 story, because that aside, the way that everything is put together is really, really fantastic. And I applaud Shusterman for taking the time to really flesh out the Scythes and the Scythedom in this society, and how people feel guilt when they kill people. And it's not just about killing people. It's done for a greater purpose, because some people live to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and how long can you really live before being like tired? And that's one of the things I admired about Scythe Curie too. She really mainly looks for people who look like they've been tired of living, because essentially, if you try to kill yourself, like they're just going to revive you again. If you jump off a building, they're going to think that that you did it for sport, basically. So one thing that I admired about Curie is that when she goes out, she looks for people who look like they've been tired of living. If they've been alive for 200, 300, 400 years, how long can you really live before getting bored? So I would absolutely recommend you guys pick this one up. I don't know if I'm going to be doing like an individual video on book 2 and then a single video on book 3 too. I might summarize them into one video, because I just from previous videos I mentioned I might do that, but I felt like Scythe, the first book, needed to be its own video just for certain things that happened. So absolutely pick this one up. You guys won't regret it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next book review video. Thanks. Bye.